Hello, and welcome to this discussion about the use of 21st century skills and textbooks in our modern day classrooms. Now, when I speak of modern day classrooms, I'm speaking of K through 12 classrooms. My name is Ken O'Flaherty, and I am currently a mostly 10th and 11th grade teacher. So I've made many observations and had many discussions with students and seen the results of many different skills and activities that either I've given or I've inquired from the students about in terms of what they do with their other teachers in the other classrooms. Because, hey, I'm just like any good teacher should be. I like to borrow good ideas from other people. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. But I really think that we should put a focus on the use of textbooks and how much some teachers absolutely rely on their textbooks to be the backbones of their classes, information, giving their students skills. Um, and those skills that I'm speaking of is skills such as chapter outlines, which I know a lot of teachers rely on, um, worksheets that correspond with the chapters, assigning chapter review questions, and some teachers think that that's absolutely sufficient, that their students will be learning perhaps an immense amount of information and acquiring uh, numerous skills by simply working out of the textbook. And I'm sorry for laughing, but I do think that it's funny that in the 21st century that there are uh, people out there who still believe this to be true. I mean, what is a textbook? A textbook, when they were mass produced, was 16th century. 16th century skill. 500 years later, we're still using them, and oftentimes using them a lot, and as the primary source of information in every classroom. Now, in a world where we have something called the internet, and we have numerous forms of ways that students can receive information, such as YouTube videos, such as online articles, Google, we still, or some teachers, excuse me, still rely on that textbook. Now, the internet, a little something about that. Once you pay for the service, it's free. And school districts nationwide pay millions and perhaps billions of dollars for textbooks for their schools, which to me, if you look at that, that's a simple solution. School districts around the country are facing budget deficits. They're overspending. They're underfunded, which is often the case, and with just the simple making available of resources that can connect to the internet, students can find information much faster than reading through a whole textbook. Not that that doesn't have value, some value, but they could find information directly by using search engines like Google, YouTube videos, and the vast amount of other resources that the internet offers. Now, with that said, I'm not urging for the elimination of textbooks. That is something that I want to make clear that I'm not trying to do. However, I do believe that it can be managed, both financially with school districts and within each classroom, that the textbook should be used as a supplemental source of information rather than the primary source of information for our students. And so I just want to make it clear that I'm not saying get rid of all textbooks. Students don't need to know how to read or some, you know, crazy idea like that. That's certainly not the case. Students have to read on the internet as well. So when they do Google searches, they'll be getting more direct information about the topic that they're searching for. On top of that, they do still have to read. I mean, it doesn't always just tell you and explain to you what the information is, unless you have an audio resource or you have a YouTube video or something, you know, of that nature. So, what I would like to advocate for is more use of skills and information finding and fact finding than simply just textbooks, and encourage more modern forms of finding information that students are actually going to use in the future. One of the things that consistently comes from my students that I ask, and I do ask, what helps you the most? What doesn't help you the most in the classrooms that you're in? I teach history, so I mostly ask students about their history classes. So when I ask them this information, it's almost always outlines don't help, worksheets don't help. You know, and there's various other skills that say don't help. The skills that say do help them is things like discussions, being able to pose questions in an open forum with their classmates, interacting with their classmates, being able to use technological resources like computer labs. We have some computer labs at our school. I think we have 4. We also have 2 laptop carts and 2 iPad carts that are good for an entire classroom. So the students consistently say that those types of activities and those types of skills help them the most. And I understand that the resources is a problem, that we can't necessarily buy every student an iPad or every student a laptop in every classroom nationwide. That's just not feasible to happen in a 1-year time span. I mean, that would take some planning, some budgeting, and depending on the size of your school district, it could take a long time for such a massive expenditure to actually become reality. So I do understand all of those things, but it has to start somewhere. And if school districts nationwide started budgeting for these types of resources for our students, they would certainly be in a better place globally when they graduate, and they would certainly be in a better place entering college when they finish high school, which the overwhelming majority of students in the 21st century, I've found, are aspiring to do. They're almost all aspiring to go to college in some form or fashion, in terms of community college, state universities, or private universities. So these things are real, and the students are going to have to be able to have these skills. The more valuable skills that I've read are skills like networking. Students need to be able to start forming networks with people in the field of study that they are interested in entering into. Students are going to be required to be able to use social media effectively to convey information. and build groups and communities and networks. Students are also going to, are often likely not going to have to, um, fill out worksheets in the future. They're likely not going to have to outline. It's funny about the outlines. I kind of make a big deal about this at my school, but I always say, why are we giving outlines? It's okay to give outlines for a couple of chapters, just so that students develop the organizational skills that an outline can provide. However, there are literally some teachers who assign it for every chapter of the book, and when I question it, they say, well, they respond by saying, this is a skill. This is a skill that they need. Well, I understand, it could be a valuable skill, and certainly for some students that would work. But to assign every student in your classroom every chapter, an outline of every chapter, to me just seems really ludicrous and really unrealistic to think that every student can learn in that particular way. And the students convey the same information to me because I do go out there and ask them. I'm not just assuming these things. I'm not just a strong advocate of skills that or promoting something that a student would want necessarily. I mean, I want students to learn. That should be every teacher's overall goal, no matter what. It should all come down to, are my students learning from this? And if the answer is no, not all the time, or I think so, or you're not sure, I believe that means essentially that's like a definite no. That if you have to question it, the answer is probably no, that your students aren't learning it. So in terms of, in terms of this building the skills that students are going to need in the future, I mean, outlines just aren't the way. I mean, that's okay to teach them the overall skill, but it's not like the answer to everything. It's not the answer to all organization. It's just not. Students are going to need information skills that are going to go far above and beyond just to outline, just a worksheet. I've also asked administrators and other colleagues at my school, did you do outlines in college, or did you do worksheets in college? And the answer almost every single time is no. So the fact that both my colleagues of my peers and veterans, more veteran teachers than I, as well as the overwhelming majority of students are answering this question pretty much the same way. No, they don't learn, or no, they didn't do that in college, or what have you, should send a strong message to our teachers these days to try to get with the 21st century, graduate from the 16th century, and let's move into the 21st century and start teaching our kids some skills that are actually going to make them competitive in the global economy when they graduate. And let's get them into schools, universities, that with these skills and used to being able to find information in other ways aside from simply reading that textbook. So thank you all very much for joining me in my Google Hangout today. There will be more to come. Have a great night. Thank you.